Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. My name is Lisa and today we're on our 4th week of chain stitch. We're going to be doing 2 different stitches, but we're going to be doing 2 variations of each one, and I hope you'll enjoy following along with me. Let's go ahead and get started. I've pre-threaded my needles. We're going to do a green, a variegated pink and green, which we're doing on every block. And then I've got 2 different shades of pink. Except for the variegated, these are all pearl cottons today. I've got a 4-seam block in the frame. I will just give you a heads up. I'm discovering that I need a few more of the 4-seam blocks than I do of the 6-seam blocks. So if you haven't made all your blocks yet, make a few extra of the 4-seam blocks. We had a little adventure today. Mushu got out. He opened the door that was latched, pried open the corner. I haven't figured it out. Anyway, he got outside and had an adventure on his own for about 2 hours. What are you doing? Did you get outside? Are you glad to see me? Come on. Are you ready to go back in? Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Let's go back. Oh my goodness, that was unexpected. Let's go ahead and get started. So today's stitches are not single chain stitches, which is what we've mostly been working on so far. Today we're going to do 2 varieties of double chain stitch and 2 varieties of triple chain stitch. These are really interesting, and I think we're going to take the first double variation and do it on this long seam here. We're going to go ahead and do this with this variegated thread. I'm going to show you my trial piece here. Ignore the ones on the top. These are the ones that we're going to be doing. So this is double chain. This is a double chain. So variety 1 and 2. And then we have 2 varieties of triple chain. One's the official version and the other is my take on it. I actually came up with a slight variation on the double chain. It's not a huge difference, but it's a bit of a difference. So I'm wondering if maybe part way we'll switch and do my variation versus the other one, which just goes to show you that it doesn't matter if you're doing a stitch properly, because that's how new stitches are formed. Let's start off with the correct version here. I'm starting down here in the seam allowance. I'm coming up right on the seam. And now we're going to be doing 2 stitches together, and the first one is going to come off to the side just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch this even though it's going to look like I'm stitching most of this one out in the seam allowance. I'm just trying to get my pattern established. I'm going to actually bring it off to the side. I want it to be noticeably off to the side. So there's our stitch number 1. So the first one is the small one. Now we're going to bring our thread over and we're going to go back down next to where we originally came up. And now we're going to come up, and I'm going to come up on the seam line up here. I'm going to come up above this other one. And then let's pull that. And I want to leave it a little bit more rounded than that. So loosen it up. Don't make it too tight. And then we're going to make this first one again. So I'm going down inside the loop of that second one. And now I want to come out, but I've got to remember I'm coming up from the bottom, not the top. And you almost need to exaggerate this one out to the side, or it will seem like it's too close to the seam. So there we are, and they're pretty parallel, so I'm happy with that. And now we're going to go ahead and come down inside the loop of the second loop. And we're going to come up above up here. And so you get this nice pattern of 2 loops kind of nesting with one another. Now we're going to come out to the side again, but I'm going to go down inside that last loop and come off From the bottom, we're coming off to the side. And now we're going to go back to that larger loop that we just made, go inside it to the right of where we came up, and now we're coming up above. And that one, I just pulled that a little tight. I find this one is much nicer if we see it with a little bit of roundness to it. And now this time we're going to make our small one again, so we're coming this time to the right of where we just came up. And my thread is twisting there. And that's probably because I haven't pulled the needle down the thread far enough, so I just did that. Now we're coming up to the side here. Again, exaggerate it a little bit so that it lays in the right position. And then we're going back inside that larger loop, this time going to the left of where we came up. And now we're going to come up on the seam, but above the top of that last one. So it just makes an interesting pattern. So down to the right of where we came up, go out to the side, exaggerate it a little bit, go through that loop, pull that, then back in the large loop to the left this time of where we came up. And so now we're coming up on the seam above. Now we're going to make the small one. We come up in the middle and we go down on the right to make the diagonal one and down on the left to make the large one. And again, out to the side, exaggerate it just a little bit, and then down on the inside to the left this time. Just bring your thread over so it's easier to make that loop. I really like that one. I think it's got an unusual characteristic. We sort of have a triangle almost in there. If you bring the Lazy Daisy up a little bit, they might seem more like you've got a small one and a large one coming into the same spot. Let's do one more of those. So there's that one. Now we're coming over to the left of where we came up. Pull my loop out so I can see it up on the seam line. So it's a double chain. When you're thinking about these chain stitches, think of a chain as being a stitch where you are looping and going through that loop to make a chain. Yeah, I think we're just going to finish this one off, go all the way with this one. And then this one we're going to come up above. Now notice my tension got a little off on that smaller one, so I've just pulled on it to see if I could even that out a little bit. I think we got it. So now down on the right, coming over and exaggerating a little bit, come through that loop. Especially with floss or stranded cotton, try not to go through the threads. Down on the left this time, coming up above. Now we're going to come down on the right. Now coming off diagonally to the right, coming up through that loop, and I can see my threads all separating here, so I'm going to watch my loop because I'm running short on thread here. And so when I get to the end of my thread, it's a little harder to manage. So I'm going to pull it down. We may need to get another length of thread here. Oh, and I don't want to go down there. I want to go down on the inside of the last big loop on the left of where we came up. Now we're going to come up above. And I think that's not really quite enough thread. Gosh, we're so close. Let me check and see what I have. So I do have another short length, but we don't need a whole lot here. Let's take this as far as we can go. So I'm going to go down on the inside. Let's see if we can get at least this smaller diagonal lazy daisy in with this. Through my thread. Can I do the other one? And I won't have enough to make a knot. So I'm going to actually go right down, and because I'm still stitching, I'm just going to park my needle over here. And now I'm going to come up with this one, which is almost that same color, and I'm just going to come up right on the inside there where I did my lock stitch. And now we're going to come back, go inside, now we're coming up above, going through that loop. Now down to the right, come up diagonally. I'm stitching out into my seam allowance just so I finish that stitch off. And now we're going to go up and then come over to the left side of where we came up. And now we're going to stitch up, and we're going to definitely be in our seam allowance out here. And then we're going to go down. And now I can lock that off, and by just going over that, and I'll knot it off on the other side. But that is our double chain stitch variation number 1. You can vary it by changing the angles. If you move that diagonal one up a little bit, it'll change the appearance a little. So let me turn it over, and we're going to make a knot. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and rotate my block for the next one. Now we're going to do our second variation. I've got the green pearl cotton in my needle. This one I'm going to do completely off the seam going the other way. This one is another version of double chain stitch. We're going to be making this little lattice pattern with this. Let's make a line because it'll make a difference on this one. We could make it pretty narrow, or we could go a little wider. So I'm just lining up on my line here, and I'm just going to draw that line down. That did not come out very dark. I know somebody suggested using a piece of cardboard, and it would have helped if I'd gotten the cardboard ready ahead of time. There we go. That'll give me enough of a guideline, and usually that darkens up as we go. So this one, we're going to come up on one side, and we're going to go down on the other. But we're going to be making a second stitch next to this. So I came up, and this really should have come up just on the inside of this seam. We're going to make it work. No, I think that's right. We're on the outside here, so we're going to go on the inside here. So we're going to go down. Now we're going to come up. You can vary how close together you want these, and I'm going to space them about probably 1/4 of an inch apart. And now we're going to come down, and we're going to go over and go down on the line on the far side. And this time we're going to bring that loop up, and I want to be thinking about coming about 1/4 of an inch above the top of my last one. So we're going to pull that gently, and now we're going to come down on the outside of that last stitch, but we're going to be inside that first loop that we did. And now we're going to come up. I'm not going to come up quite so far. I think we want a little less distance here. And I think I've got my thread twisted on the back. Yeah, they're just wrapped around one another, so I'm just pulling it out. And again, I want to try and leave that rounded look. And so now I'm going to come down on the line, but inside my loop on the far side. So there's always going to be 2 threads coming through each of these triangles. So this one, I'm going to come up on the inside of my line. I'm going to go up about 1/4 of an inch. Try and leave it rounded. You get a nicer look that way. Now I'm going to come down and go the outside in the loop on the one below. And then we're going to come up about 1/4 of an inch. And so this one, I actually do want to come up. I want to come up on the inside of that. I think that will actually make a better appearance, because then the next stitch will come up out on the outside of that stitch. So there we are on the outside. On the other side, come up on your line about 1/4 of an inch above, trying to leave that rounded loop. Now this time we're going to come outside of the previous stitch where we came up. Now we're going down. And this time we're going up 1/4 of an inch, but we're going to come up on the inside of our line, or in this case the seam. Pull that, not too tight, give it a little bit of looseness, not too loose, but you want it loose enough that it still maintains a little bit of that rounded. And then I went down on the line, but outside of the previous stitch. And now we're going to come up inside the line, about 1/4 of an inch above, and then down outside the line in the loop below. And then we're coming up about 1/4 of an inch above on the inside of the line or seam in this case. Then we're going to come up on the outside of the previous stitch, but on the line. Now we're going to come up inside the line, straight above where we were just finishing. Pull that loop gently. Now we're going to pull that loop out below, go outside the line or seam, come up about 1/4 of an inch on the inside, pull it gently. My thread's getting close to the needle, so I need to pull it down. Now we're going to come up on the line inside that last loop on the other side. So we always have 2. We have one that went down, one that comes up. So 1/4 inch. My line's already fading here. That's fine. And now we're going down next to where we came up on the other side. Come up 1/4 inch above inside the line or the seam. Now go down in the loop on the opposite side, outside of where we came up on the line or in the seam, depending on how you're laying it out. 1/4 inch above. And then this one we're coming up on the inside. Again, not too tight, not too loose. Down on the other side. 1/4 inch above on the inside. So we're always coming up toward the inside and always going down towards the outside. And by having that line there, it helps you ensure that you're getting good spacing. And I think that one's a little too short. Let's try that over again. There we go. I think that's a little better. It doesn't seem like a lot of difference when you're stitching it, but then when you get the pattern fully finished, you can really tell. So up on the inside, 1/4 inch above, and down on the far side, on the outside. Up on the inside, about 1/4 inch above, and then I feel like I need to finish it off just in case my seam moves up a little bit. I'd rather just have that complete, so I'm just going to finish it off up here, and I'm going to just catch that with a little catch stitch right over that thread, lock it in place, and then I can turn it over and make my knot. And there we have a different double chain. So you have 1, 2, so we're going opposite directions each time. So let me turn that over, make my knot, and I'll be right back. Let's do the triple chain stitch on this one, and we're going to do this one the correct way. We're going to be making a chain stitch going up, and I'm going to start right on the seam. And then we're going to come up right next to it and make the next one. We're going to stick with that 1/4 inch spacing. So there is chain stitch number 1. Now I'm going to end it. I'm going to go down and catch stitch it. Now we're going to come up to the side, and we're going to make one over here. And this one, they're all going to point towards this spot right here. So I'm going to go down, and I'm going to come up, not quite in the center there, and I'm going to make a little catch stitch. I believe the really true correct version, each stitch is completely independent of one another, but it just seems like a waste to me to have to put that many extra stitches in there. So I'm actually going to thread through that center catch stitch we just did with this one, using the back of my needle so I don't go through my thread, and I'm going to come back out to the outside. So there is our triple, and then we're going to repeat that, but our next chain starts inside the first one. And so we're going to go down, and then we're going to come up. Now I'm going to make this one, because we're coming out a little further now, we're not right against my seam, I'm coming out a little bit further. And let's pull that a little tighter there, and then we're going to go down. Then we're coming straight out to the side, making another chain. This is actually what we would call a detached chain. And we're going to come over here, not quite in the center. I'm going to come up through that loop. And now I'm going to make my catch stitch to the other side. And then we're going to come up over here. I feel like that needs to go out just a smidgen further. You know, sometimes when you're looking at it and you think it looks like it's the same length, but once you actually stitch it, it gets shorter. So sometimes you have to exaggerate just that little bit. Go through that catch stitch, or you could do it completely separate, either way, and then next to it. Now you'll notice I'm leaving just a slight gap there. I'm not trying to get them really tight in there. And that's one of the things that makes this stitch unique. Now we're going to go up. We're coming up in the last chain along the seam, and we're making our next one. So it goes over. I need to think about how long I made that. I can just sort of eyeball where I think that needs to come to. Let's see how that works. Oops, I'm caught on my frame here. That threw me off. Now we're going to go over it and lock it. And now we're coming off straight to the side out here. And I'm trying to come up, just that slight exaggeration, give just a tiny bit of space between the ends on there. Come up just before that seam. Now I'm going to go through that loop, pull it, and then make my catch stitch, but I'm making that a little longer. Now we're coming up to this side. I'm going to go through and back pretty close, but not exact. This one's a little bit crooked. I can probably adjust my thread to make it look a little straighter. Now we're going to come up inside the vertical one, go down right next to it. I need to pull my needle down the thread. And I'm going to go down and catch that. Complete that stitch. Now we're coming off to the side. I'm going to go down just a little gap away. Come up, not quite in the center. Make that catch stitch that goes just over. A little bit longer than we normally would do. And I'm trying to really make sure I'm coming out across so I'm not tilting it. I can check with my needle. I'm going to thread through that. Go down next to it. Again, leaving that little gap. Then I'm coming up in the middle of the vertical one, going down right next to where I came up. And this one, we're going to be ever so slightly shorter because we're running into that next seam. We're going to pull that up, make our catch stitch right there. Now I don't have room to put the side one there, but I do on this side. So I'm going to come straight out over here, go down right next to it, but with that little bit of gap, I'm going to come up through that loop and make my little catch stitch across. And that finishes that, except if I've done that up here, I need to come back and do that down here. So let me put a knot in that and we'll come back and do that. So I'm going to come up straight out to the side. I'm going to go down pretty close, but not exact, giving it a little bit of a gap. I'm going to come up right in here, and I'm going to thread that and make my catch stitch. Now be careful if you're going and doing that you're not stitching through the previous knot of this other stitch. I wish I'd tightened that up now a little bit. But that is triple chain stitch variation number 1. Now I am going to turn this around. I don't want it to all look like it's going the same direction. We have our next thread, and this time we're going to do a triple, but instead of the side ones starting out here, they're going to actually start at the center and go out. And so it gives it a slightly different appearance. Like usual, I'm going to start out here in my seam allowance. I want my knot away from where the machine is going to be stitching when I sew the blocks together. I'm going to come up and this time, instead of going right and catching it down, now I'm going to come and I'm going to go in right next to the side, but I'm going to come out to the side. And we're going to go this direction. Now I'm going to make my catch stitch around the end of that loop. Now I'm going to come up inside and I'm going to go back down in that first chain, and then we're going to come out to the side. And you can vary how long you make these legs. Maybe you want long ones on the outside and short ones on the inside. It's all up to you. Now we're coming back up in that very first chain and going down. Now we're going to make another chain along the seam. And see, my thread's getting close, so I need to, when I get free of the fabric, I need to pull my needle down the thread, and that will help prevent knotting and getting in the way here. Now I do have this other seam right here, and that's going to impact how the seam looks, but we'll see how it goes here. So I'm going to just scoop. For me, I'm right-handed, so when I'm scooping this direction, I can just go that way. If you're left-handed, you can scoop off the other direction. And then go down and catch that. Come up inside that first chain of that group. And because I'm not left-handed, I'm going to go down right next to it. And we're going to let this one ride over the other seam. See if I can find my spot here. So I'm coming up inside. And you just have to judge. If something nice was happening here with that other seam, you might choose to eliminate one of those. Make it look like it's underneath. Now we're going to come back up in the vertical one and make our next chain going up. There we go. Now we're going to start by going off to the side. Go down and catch that in. Now we're coming up on the other side. And you just want to watch that your chains aren't twisting that are coming off to the side. Although if you wanted to make a twisted one on every one, that could definitely be a design element. So you start to see how it's easy to make up new stitches. Just because there's a proper way to do it doesn't mean you can't do it slightly different and have a whole new stitch. I think I have stitched this one the way I'm showing you right now for years. And it wasn't until I was doing research for this project that I realized I wasn't doing it properly. And so then I learned the proper direction for doing it. So you could make these really close together, you know, have really short chains in between. You could have really, really long ones if you wanted. With the first variety, think about really opening those legs up. That would give you all sorts of additional design possibilities. Now we're catching that down. Now coming up in the center of near the top of the previous vertical one. Always moving your needle down the thread. back up on the seam line. Now we're going to make our one to the left. I'm just going to scoop that. And I'm just eyeballing the length of these, trying to make them come out about even. Now come up in the center again. And this time we're going out the other side. Coming back inside that chain. Come out here. Go through the loop. Pull it and then lock it in. Now we're going to come down here, make our vertical chain, both stitches originating inside the last vertical one. I'm going to go through that loop, and again, no room over here. And I'm locking that because I'm right there at the end and I want to make sure it's going to stay. I wasn't sure how it was going to fall out. So let's go ahead and make this one off to the side. There we go. And now because our seam line is going to be down here, there wouldn't be much of that showing. I'm not going to come down and put another one here. I'll turn that over and make a knot. Now I'm just looking at this and I think we need something over here. We're going to add my unofficial double chain in here. I think we're going to go off that direction because that's different than what, and I apologize, you probably can't even really see that. So I've just drawn my line here and I'm going to put it in the frame and then it'll be easier to see. When I'm putting this in the frame, I'm trying to look for which direction I want to be working. And this one I'm working bottom to top. And so it's easier to have it closer to me. I used all 4 of my threads that I had out. So let's see. I think we need another green thread. When I did this one before, I was just stitching what I thought was the stitch. And it turned out it really was not the correct stitch. I don't know what we're going to call it. On this one, I started off with a small chain coming up the seam. Again, I've started out my seam allowance. My blue line is quite a ways above that. And then I was making a bigger chain, very similar to this one, but I'm coming back down here to the beginning. And then I actually came up inside this big chain here, just above. That's, let's see if we can get that to come out right. I want to come up on my line, but inside the big chain. So we're kind of pulling it off to the side a little bit. And now I'm going to go down inside that one. We're going to come up. So now we're making a small one. Now we're going to come up inside the big one. Pull my needle down the thread. And now again we're coming up really just above that small chain here inside that loop. And now we're going to make our small chain there, right coming up the line. And then we're going to come over inside the big chain, right next to the base of the small chain. And now we're coming up just above the small chain on the line. And so it helps to pull some of those out a little bit so you can really see that stitch. And if it feels like it's too tight, you can just loosen it up. Now we're going to come inside, right next to, and we're going to make our small chain coming up on the line. So pull that one down. Now we're coming up inside the big one down below next to the small one. And this one we're going to come back up on the line or the seam, as it might be, to make that bigger loop. And now we're going to go down right next to that. We're making a smaller chain, so I guess if I'm giving you measurements, this one is about 1/4 of an inch. Now we're coming down to make the big one, coming inside the loop of the last big one. And now we're going to come up, it's about 1/8 of an inch above the small one on the line. It just gives a little different look to it. And I'm coming down right next to where I was. And this one we're going to run into this other seam, and I don't really want to go over it. So I'm going to get this one really short. I'm going to go ahead and finish the big one here, but I'm going to catch stitch it out here where it's running into that other seam. So it'll give the appearance that it continues on, even though it doesn't really. So you can see that's a little bit different look. You've got a small one and a big one, small one and a big one. So I did not find that stitch in any of my books, but that was what I was intuitively stitching on my own when I attempted to do this one. It's just a different type of double chain because there's 2 chains in pattern. This could be a fun one to play with. How many different ways can you stitch patterns of 2 chains or patterns of 3 chains to get a new seam? I'd love to hear if you try. One of the things I've been doing that I haven't talked about is in the seam allowance of each of these blocks, I have been writing which block I have been stitching. And this one is block number 12. So we're 1/4 of the way through. Let's take a look at the whole block. We have our first variation of double chain, our second variation of double chain, and then my third variation of double chain. Then we have the official version of triple chain and my variation on triple chain. So I hope you have fun with that. I like these. They give a little lacier appearance than a lot of the other stitches we've done so far. I hope that watching this variation, which is what I just sort of intuitively stitched when I was thinking about double chain and looking at this one, it's so similar, but it's ever so slightly different. And I hope that just gives you permission to play and experiment and try things on your own. How many ways can you stitch with 2 chain stitches in a pattern? Or how many ways can you stitch with 3 chain stitches in a pattern? Because this one is the way I had been stitching what was supposed to be this one. And I've been doing that for years, but I can't find that in any of the books. Thank you so much for following along with me today. I hope that you've enjoyed following along as I stitch these variations on double and triple chain stitch. Let me know which one was your favorite in the comment section. I always enjoy hearing that. Have a beautiful day, happy stitching, and I'll see you in the next video.